from the station working for you. This is breaking news from WRTV.
We begin with breaking news here at 5. The special prosecutor in the DREASJON Reed shooting death is about to announce the decision by the special grand jury called to decide if charges should be filed.
Yeah, the deadly shooting by IMPD took place May 6th on the northwest side following a police chase that turned into a foot chase. Metro Police say Reed shot at police while the Reed family legal team denies that. We're now about to hear what the grand jury decided from the special prosecutor, Rosemary Corey, live at the State Police Museum on the east side. Let's listen in. Right now you're seeing Indiana State Police Public Information Officer who is about to brief the media. We're waiting on Rosemary Corey, the special prosecutor in this case, who is expected to announce the grand jury decision. Let's listen.
To the Indiana State Police Museum. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Captain Ron Gallivis. I'm the Chief Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police. And in just a few moments, you're going to be hearing from a couple different speakers who's going to provide information to you. But first, let me make some quick introductions. Immediately to my left is Special Prosecutor Rosemary Corey. Rosemary is with the Madison County Prosecutor's Office. To her left is Rodney Cummings. Mr. Cummings is the prosecuting attorney in Madison County. And to his left is Doug Carter, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police. Before I turn the podium over to Superintendent Carter first for a few brief remarks, I do want to indicate that, that Rosemary Corey will make her brief address, and afterwards she has indicated she is willing to take limited questions. Now please understand that this case was provided to a grand jury for review, so there's going to be certain information that she just cannot talk about, but the information that she can answer will be factual in nature, will not be speculative. It'll be what we know versus what we don't know. Okay, so we appreciate that up front. And afterwards, I do have some documents to pass out to you, so I'll get that to you as soon as we conclude our press conference. So with that, please allow me to introduce Special Prosecutor Rosemary Corey. Rosemary. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, my fault. Please allow me to introduce Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter. Superintendent.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your interest and thank you for being here today. This has not been taken lightly. A lot's happened in our country around the issue associated with law enforcement use of force. And it was never probably more in the spotlight than it was on May the 25th. May the 6th is when this particular event occurred in the city of Indianapolis. You'll hear from Rosemary Corey in just a moment, who's done an extraordinary job objectively looking at the facts as they occurred. Please understand, please understand that our role is the objective finder of fact. We didn't pick a side, and we will never pick a side. We have hundreds and hundreds of hours in this investigation for really two reasons. Number one, to explain to the family of DREASJON Reed what happened. They lost a child. Number two, for the citizens of this great city to explain what happened on that day. Since that period of time, when the event occurred, again, we have gotten hundreds and hundreds of hours. We will not talk about what we think, but we will talk about what we know. So it's really, really important. I've appreciated the patience. I appreciate the partnerships. And with that said, I will turn this over to Rosemary to explain the findings of the grand jury here in the city of Indianapolis, County of Marion.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Carter, and thank you, sir. This has not been an easy task, and it's been a very heavy burden. On June 4th, excuse me. On June 4th, I was appointed by the Honorable Heather Welch as a special prosecutor to complete the investigation and any prosecution that might arise from the May 6, 2020 death of 21-year-old DREASJON Reed. I requested this investigation be turned over to the Indiana State Police to conduct as complete and thorough an investigation as possible in as sterile an environment as possible. I believe those goals have been accomplished. On August 21st, 2020, I announced that I would be engaging a special grand jury taken from the community to review the evidence and render a judgment, because I believe the grand jury system is the best and final indicator to adhere to the integrity of this investigation, which my investigative team and I have striven so hard to maintain. As the special prosecutor, I asked for the public's cooperation, patience, and for anyone with information or who may have witnessed the shooting to come forward. This was a methodical and labor-intensive investigation, and investigators from the Indiana State Police took great pains to conduct it as separate as possible from that of which had already been conducted by IMPD. When feasible, they utilized the ISP laboratory division while ensuring the necessary impartiality. The special grand jury, made up of citizens from Marion County, was impaneled to hear the testimony and review the evidence presented. Their charge was to determine if enough probable cause existed to believe a crime had been committed. The special grand jury has concluded its review of this case, and I thank each one of them for their service. This special grand jury returned a no bill. This term means there is insufficient evidence to indict or accuse Officer DeJure Mercer of a crime. That concludes my statement.
Madam Prosecutor, what was the most challenging part of presenting this case to the grand jury?
The most challenging part was trying not to let my emotions become involved. There was a lot of evidence to sort through. There were many witnesses that the investigators needed to interview. And I believe that, like I said, the most challenging part was probably just trying to sort through all of the evidence.
And what did you find to be perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence, or the grand jurors indicated to you was most instructive to them about how this incident occurred?
And because early on I committed to transparency to the extent allowable under Indiana law, I would really like to be able to answer that question, but unfortunately, due to the laws that limit the information that can be shared with the public, I'm not able to answer that.
How much of a role did the recorded video play in this case? We saw it from the car, we saw it outside the car, we saw it from numerous sources.
I mean, obviously that was a piece of evidence that was shared with the public before the grand jury was impaneled. And obviously it was an important piece of evidence. I mean, that was a piece of surveillance that captured as best it could what occurred. As far as the weight that was given to that piece of evidence, I'm unable to comment on that.
What do you hope is accomplished by what is called a methodical, thorough investigation of the facts? What do you hope the end result is?
Fairness. And from day one, that's been my goal. It's a very sad situation to have, no one wins here. So I hope that anyone who was a part of this entire process can look at this and feel comfortable that the investigation was done in an impartial manner, because that's exactly what my team and I did over the past 5 months that we've had this case.
Ms. Berger, you're in a unique position, and you mentioned your emotions, and you can see your emotions. What part of this for you is emotional in that burden that you talked about?
Both sides. I'm a mother of 2 black boys. And I know thank you. I don't know how Mr. Reed's mother feels, but I'm a mother of 2 black boys. I also am very empathetic toward Officer Mercer. I know that that had to be a difficult position to be in. So all the way around, like I said, no one wins.
Madam Prosecutor, was justice done in this investigation?
I have to believe that justice was done because I trust our system. I trust our judicial system. I put this in the hands of a special grand jury. I presented them with what I thought was a very thorough, comprehensive investigation that my team put together, and I have to believe in the system.
What charges did you present to the grand jury for consideration?
I'm not sure I'm at liberty to answer that because, again, the grand jury proceeding is a private proceeding.
Did the investigation find the shooting was justified?
The no bill indicates that the grand jurors did not find that there was enough probable cause to indict.
And is that the build?
I'd like to add something to what the special prosecutor said just a minute ago. And many of you in this room and I have had these conversations previously. One of the things that we had to overcome was the narrative about what occurred before we actually knew. So that took a little bit of time to be able to do that. And I hope that that's what both you and our citizens in Indianapolis and around the state and really even around the nation would expect. But there was a very strong public narrative early, and that's been a struggle for us from the very, very beginning. That's why I think it's so important that you heard Rosemary talk about empathy and compassion and understanding. All of those are parts of the daily life as we work through these very complicated issues, and certainly understand the dynamic associated within every community in America.
Madam
Did the
Prosecutor.
investigation find who fired at the officer?
Ma'am, that is another piece of evidence that I'm unable to share with you due to the secret nature of the grand jury proceeding.
Madam Prosecutor, do you believe that this finding will further divide Indianapolis or heal Indianapolis?
My personal beliefs on that is this. I don't believe there could have been another prosecutor assigned to this case who was as neutral as I am and as objective as I have been over the past 5 months. I've truly kept an open mind about this process, and I have tried to be as impartial as I possibly could about over this process. Early on in this process, I reached out to the mother of Mr. Reed and committed to her that I would do a thorough and impartial investigation, and I have committed to doing that. So my hope is that this community will put and have trusted me and continue to trust me and trust that this has been a fair and impartial outcome.
With the information that we don't have access to because of the secret nature of the grand jury trial, it's pretty easy to imagine that there would be a number of folks who would see that and think that that in and of itself would leave room for a miscarriage of justice. Can you kind of respond to that kind of concern?
That is Indiana law that is completely out of my control, out of the control of the investigators whom I've worked closely with. It's statutory that the nature of grand jury proceedings is secretive, so I have no control over that.
We have time for one more question because we have another place.
Superintendent Curry, can you tell us if the investigation found that Reed did indeed exchange gunfire with
Well, not here. What will happen is we will leave here in a few moments. We will always maintain the integrity of the grand jury system, but what we will share with you is what we know through the course of the investigation. I wasn't a part of the grand jury. Lieutenant Jeff Herron wasn't a part of the grand jury, so they weren't in the room with Rosemary and a great number of people. So I appreciate the question, and I think that once we explain some of the factual information, some of these questions will be answered. Yes, one
I think
more.
that's what I was going to follow up with. I mean, you mentioned when you started this process there is a narrative out there. I mean, it seems many people will believe that narrative. So will you be providing information to explain what you believe is the true narrative?
We will.
Okay, great.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our press conference. Again, I do have some materials that I would like to hand out. We do have another press conference scheduled at 5:30 right up here at the State Police Post.
You've been listening to special coverage, a news conference from Special Prosecutor Rosemary Curry announcing the findings of a special grand jury in the DREASJON Reed shooting investigation where he was fatally shot by an IMPD officer. We've learned the grand jury ruled there is a no-fail, meaning jurors did not find enough probable cause to indict the officer in this case. Our Rafael Sanchez has covered this story from the very beginning. Let's bring in Rafael for more on what this means for the case moving forward and the role that Indiana State Police played in this investigation. And Rafael, Rosemary Curry, very emotional as she delivered those statements saying that she was not privy to what the grand jurors were discussing in this, but only could deliver their final ruling.
That's right, Mark. In tears, Rosemary Curry saying this was not an easy task, but a heavy burden. And she believes that justice was done. She called her investigation thorough and complete. Here at the live desk at WRTV, I have a couple of calls out right now to Fatima Johnson, the lawyer for the Reed family. Waiting to hear from them, also waiting to hear from the family as well. As soon as we get a response to what they just witnessed, they've been watching this on social media. I will get that to you as soon as possible. But in the next few minutes, Mark, State Police will detail how they reached their conclusion. Remember, State Police investigators were in charge of this investigation. A source tells me it will be a 30-minute presentation. It will include video and audio clips to support their decision. This is expected to be very, very detailed, all in an effort to answer as many questions as possible about the deadly shooting that occurred on May the 6th. We'll bring that to you live right here on WRTV as soon as that news conference begins. Now, remember that State Police took over the investigation back on June the 10th at the request of Special Prosecutor Rosemary Curry. Behind the scenes, I am told there was a lot of concerns about how long this was taking to get to this point, but Mark, here we are on this day. I should point out that some of the ripple effects, or some people who are wondering, well, what does this mean to me? Just remember that after the May 6th shooting, the city of Indianapolis really began to implement some major reforms. In fact, one of the biggest reforms that we will all see by the middle of this month are those body cameras. All Metro police officers should have their body cameras installed by mid-November. I'll have the very latest for you coming up on the news at 6, Mark. Now back to you in Studio A.
Rafael, thank you. And we are continuing to gather much more reaction, as you heard Rafael mention. We'll have the state presentation at 5:30 for you and much more reaction coming up for you on the news at 6. We'll be back with more news right after this.
And welcome back. 5:22 on this Tuesday evening. We didn't just set a record today. We did something a little more difficult than that. We set our third consecutive record. high temperature, the only time that's ever been done in Indianapolis in the month of November. Our high temperature, the record high was 75. We've rewritten the record book. 77 is the magic number now that we made it to this afternoon. Some breaks in the cloud cover, but off to the west, a strong line of thunderstorms and rain. I think the lightning has been fairly minimal here, but a big temperature change is on the way. Tornado watch, northern Illinois. Severe thunderstorm watch, central portions of Illinois. I do anticipate this line of storms as it moves to the east to continue to weaken. There's a low risk. We could have some strong wind gusts as this line reaches central Indiana, but that's still hours away. I'll show you the timing in a second. There will be other showers that develop out ahead of that. You can see a few of those down near Bedford, Columbus, Bloomington, and Seymour now. There's the change that I'm talking about and that you'll need to dress for tomorrow. 74 in Indy, 62 in Peoria, Illinois, in the 30s in central Iowa, and then you get into the 20s back in South Dakota. As far as the temperatures right now in Indianapolis, we're still about 20 degrees above average, 75 in Terre Haute, 76 in Lafayette. Let's work on the timing. Here are some of the showers out ahead of the line that I showed you back in Illinois. This is between 7 and 8 tonight. There's the stronger line of showers and some isolated thunderstorms approaching Lafayette and Terre Haute. That's at 9 o'clock. 11 o'clock, we'll have moved through the metro area and just off to the east. Again, an isolated severe storm with damaging wind being the main threat. Then once that goes through, I think we'll see a 15 to 20 degree temperature drop about like that. It'll happen quickly as the winds shift, and you can see these temperatures falling into the morning hours at 47, and we'll struggle to warm up from there. Nearly the entire state under this low or marginal risk for severe storms tonight. We're dry after this and much cooler, as you can see, right on through Saturday. Slight chance of showers Sunday. I think the most likely time for rain after tonight will be Saturday night. Then temperatures peak on Sunday at 62. So we'll continue to watch those storms now between now and 11 o'clock. Mark?
All right, Kevin, thank you. Now to the impact of coronavirus on Indiana today. Nearly 4,900 new positive cases reported today. The state also reports 63 more deaths of people with COVID. Those deaths occurred between October 14th and yesterday. The statewide total is now 4,481 since March. Let's give you a clearer picture of the monthly breakdowns of coronavirus deaths and how they've gone up and down. Now, this is a chart based on information from the state health department showing when a death occurred not reported to the public. The highest number is April, 1,041 deaths. May was 914. Then we saw a pretty steady decline for a few months, and then the number of deaths jumped again last month to 719. And so far this month, 250 deaths. Due to the increasing number of coronavirus cases, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum is now closed. The close took effect today and will remain in place until at least Thanksgiving. Staff will reevaluate the week of Thanksgiving to determine the next steps. The museum management said it implemented the closure to protect the health of its staff.
Thanksgiving is a little more than 2 weeks away, and a group that feeds thousands of people on the holiday every year needs your help. The Moselle Sanders Foundation says it is looking for restaurants and schools that can open their kitchens to help prepare and warm up Thanksgiving meals. And that's because the kitchen they normally use at Butler University is shut down because of the pandemic. The foundation is also looking for donations as well as volunteers. If you can help, you can call them at the number on your screen. That's 317-636-7985. We'll be back with the State Police News Conference in the DREASJON Reed case at 5:30.